looks like we're live. uh, Welcome to Pinball Mayhem. I'm Ed. You've been seeing Jeremy streaming a lot lately. I've taken a little bit of a break due to a career change, and it's been mostly I was streaming on Twitch for MGC, Midwest Gaming Classic Show. Right now, I kind of just reconfigured the setup for YouTube here, and I think I'm going to be doing some just bench repairs as I'm working down here, streaming on YouTube and talking with you guys. So hopefully some people pop in chat, say hi, and we'll see how it goes from there. Got a new program, a whole new setup over here. Average view duration. So just kind of just seeing how things are going. So give me a sec to check out over here. See if I can. Oh, well. Looks like there we are. Yeah, that's not going to work. All right. All right, we'll see how that works. See if I can mute this. Testing, testing. Can you hear me? All right, well, we're live. I'm going to be working on the bench. Cheers. I'm going to mute my chat. Hey, Jeff. Cool. My playfield is not the greatest. This is a game that me and a buddy are learning to. Well, we're working on swapping. I'm trying to teach a new guy about how to. Not swapping, it's shopping. Teaching a new guy the hobby of pinball, and this game's got to be fixed up. Probably going to be bringing it down to Midwest Gaming Classic in April. So time is ticking, tick tock. I got this game and two others that we're going to be bringing. And tonight I'd like to do the rectifier board. So great that you can hear me. Mostly my rig is working. I'll just show you my bench a little quickly. What we got, I got to clean a couple things off of here. I got nothing, just dealing with a little bit of the getting used to the lag here. I don't know how you micro does. Oh, cool. Yeah, they're always blown out. I know. Here we have a Wurlitzer speaker I'm repairing for somebody. I got to get that off, and we're going to be moving the Valley rectifier board. Now, it is currently in the game behind me, so let me switch over to that. I'm going to be turning my back a little bit away from chat. So let me find the right button. And let's go take a look at that. So definitely, Jeremy, I have some questions for you about the lag and how you deal with that. All right, move that over here. And here is the game. Let me check my my view. Yeah, you can't see it very well. The playfield's kind of blown out on this. Really, what I want to do is we're just going to take the board out over here. So I'm gonna we cleaned it down. We took it down as far as we're comfortable with. Did a clean, a polish. You can see there's some blown out paint around here. The posts have been ultrasonic. The plastics still need to be cleaned. Tomorrow night, me and my buddy are going to be assembling it. Hopefully building up the top side, getting the lights going, and maybe even pulling the rectifier solenoid board out. So for tonight, the goal is the bottom here and go through it. I was having some problems with 5 volts. My 5-volt fuse is blowing right away. The first thing we do, it's our friend Scott always says, is start at the wall and work your way out. So I like that theory. So what we're going to do is we know the voltage coming in here is good. I got other voltages, but there's time to do some updates on this bad boy. I think I'm going to replace darn near everything on here, except for the plugs and some of the clips, but we got a lot of stuff going on. Just Phillips screws. Pretty lucky, not too bad. Bench over here, and I'll get back to you guys in chat in a few minutes. Let me, or when I get this board out, I'll be able to read it when I get over there. Got one screw that's underneath the harness. This is actually an interesting for you, Jeff. You said you have a Valley Vector. This is a really interesting one. It has 2 coin doors, and it is factory that way. I'll back up the camera before I go back to the bench work. There we go. The board is out. There's our rectifiers on the bottom we'll be replacing. Some crack joints. We'll be looking at a lot of stuff on this. All right, let's throw that on the bench. Yeah, I think you're right. So I'm going to back this up and just go down a bit. I don't know if you can see the 2 coin doors is quite interesting. So those 2 coin doors are it was on Electra and Vectors. I think most of them are on Vectors. It's only on a few of them, not all of them, and it allowed for a bill acceptor to be on this side, and it was kind of an experiment. Now these doors are in pretty good shape. I'm not going to repaint them except for this little aluminum piece. I'm going to make a nice steel block out and paint that black, and paint the bolts. So other than that, these are pretty good. Just needs a good cleaning. So I'll be tearing that apart tomorrow night. And of course, the locks need to match as well on the front. Well, let's get back to the bench where I can read the comments as they're coming in. A little bit better, less dead air. And here we are. No more Wurlitzer speaker here. I'm going to do something just quickly because I want to try and stay up with chat to see what you guys are seeing. So, all right, cool. Oh, that's not right. All right, let me start this over. Go live. And it's just kind of tuning my setup. Eventually, tomorrow I might have this tablet up. I might pop in now and then. I'm probably going to do less and less scheduled streams, just because I like just to work some nights on the bench and see what I can get done. First thing I'm going to do is let's get my desoldering iron warmed up and take a look at this board. I'm going to get just a brush and dust it off. It needs to be cleaned. So what I find works really well for cleaning boards is a paintbrush. You can get really deep, just for dusting off, just for kind of getting that layer of old dust. Now we did vacuum everything down inside this, and really, number one things that you want to do is take a look at the diodes and the bridges. These fuses, or the resistors here and here, are probably good. You got, and we'll go through a lot of things. The fuse clips for 20 amperes. I'm blocking my parts, so I'm going to pull my fuses out. That's another thing I always do, is check the fuses. Take them all out right away. Put them on the side. I'll check to make sure they're the right value. Most of the time, they're the wrong value. Happens, just people use whatever they get. So those are out. If we notice the, how well you can see, but the 20 amp fuse clips are always tarnished like that. And those are bad. Those got to be replaced. Luckily, I got some replacements. I'll show you some of the part numbers I use. I actually ordered everything from Mauser. I used to order from Great Plains, and this here is actually the hinge for a plastic cover, which I have. I'm kind of surprised that it's removed because these seem to be in pretty good shape. So someone got a little bit aggressive. We found in the back of the coin doors. Oh yeah, I know somebody wrote an article there that was on Pinside or something at one time. I thought it was really kind of cool to see the dual coin doors. So bench tools. It's been a little while since I've been on here, so hi to everybody who used to watch me, and hi to everybody that's new. Yeah, exactly, Jeff. I like just to kind of replace everything I can. It's like this little fuse here is a 5-cent fuse. These diodes here, they're 1N4004s, but I only have 1N4007s. There's no point in having a 1N4004 around because it's the same cost, or maybe a quarter of a penny more when you buy 100 or 200 from Mauser. And I mean, they're the same rectifier diode. They're the same thing. It's just they're tested and rated at higher specs. And you know the 1N4004s are probably the same ones. They come off the same line. They just say, oh well, these test for that line. So I'm going to replace those. And the fuse clips, at least these 20 amperes, are going to get replaced. I used to get a lot of my parts from Great Plains Electronics, but he kind of retired and maybe be starting up again. So unfortunately, I only got 2 of those clips, but I spent a few bucks on parts. So we'll be using these up as well with Mauser. So I'll show you the part numbers as I go, and let's rock and roll. I'm going to start with these ones that I have out over here. The resistor I got right here. Be interesting because the spec in the book, it says it's supposed to be 100 kilo ohm quarter watt, but that's not 100 kilo ohm. I wonder if one of these two is not 100k ohm. And I'm just going to pull those diodes off. One thing I always like to make sure that they're marked on the board the way they're supposed to be, and they are marked. So I'm using a Taco 470 with an 802 handpiece desoldering station. I absolutely love this. And wasn't really doing very good techniques. Yeah, I know. I even know somebody who wanted to talk to him about buying the business and keeping it going. At the least, I think I tried to do a way back or a save at his website, but at the least, I hope his website stays live, and he can kind of keep it on as a reference, or at least somebody can keep it on as a reference. So, Jeff, do you know offhand if that resistor for R3, what it's supposed to be? Because the value here is different than the value I saw in the manual. So I'm wondering if this EPA EPA 6675. That's not vector. Vector would be EV. E. So what would EPA be? PA. What Bally starts with PA in the solid state era? Playboy? No. Yeah. I know the same things are happening in the jukebox world too. We ended up, where I work now, we ended up having to absorb a lot of people that just kind of wanted out, and we wanted their assets, their knowledge, and tooling. But, you know, hopefully with websites sharing knowledge, and maybe in the pinball world, especially with how popular the hobby is, it will pick up. Somebody might pick up where others left off. So what I'm going to do with this resistor, I'm just going to pull it out and set it on the side. I'm not going to put a new one in quite yet. So for those of you that may be new to this, so we got 4 diodes and a resistor on the top. Good thing is I checked and looked at the, now you don't ever have to completely trust the silk screening. So I did is I checked to make sure that the diodes were marked with a line on the right, and the diodes I pulled out were marked the same way. Sometimes some repairs call for things to be put back in not the right way, but like if you're doing a Gottlieb pop driver board, yeah, one of those pop bumper boards. Why can't I speak tonight? And yeah, so for the Bally pop bumper board or Gottlieb pop bumper boards, there's some things you do a little bit differently. So what I'm going to do is just kind of stuff these. Now, I like to not worry about pulling diodes super tight. Leave a little bit of a tail. Just because diodes, well, they rectify, and these rectifier diodes will get a little hot. So if I can just leave them a little bit off the board, that's great. Got stuffing boards at work today. Work from home because of the storm that we're getting. Yeah, it's definitely been pulled from something. Because I mean, the serial number is always E for electronic, which means it's post electromechanical EM. And then the PA, like E, I think ECE is Centaur, and it was not uncommon for operators to pull whatever they had laying around and just make it work. But just wondering what an EPA. I know there was some changes in the run of the diodes. Like for instance, the diodes that I'm going to be throwing into the large spot, I'm going to be putting the later spec diodes in place, just because. It's going to be a much more reliable animal. So I just want to make sure that I put the best diode in, and I guess like with a lot of you guys doing this enough where sometimes we just check the manual and stuff. We don't reread PinWiki every time we're going to put some new parts on a board. I know there's a few different ways of doing this. You can strip the board completely down and rinse in the sink and all that fun stuff, and then put the components on. But I think tonight I'll just do one part at a time. I believe the vector manual showed 100 kilo ohm in that spot, quarter watt. The only thing which I hope none of you cringe, I know Scott will cringe, for the cement resistors, I couldn't actually get cement resistors, but I got the same rating but with a wire round, and I mean that's going to work. They even did that occasionally in the manufacturing, but Actually, I noticed wire round are sometimes smaller. It makes me think that they can dissipate heat a little bit better. Yep, dash 54. All right. You're right, Jeff. You're firing on all cylinders tonight. All right, let me... I'm going to move this. It's right in the way of my garbage bin. All right. Hey, Bearcade. Long time no see. How you been? Just tonight. Okay, so I left those a little up, and once again, that was just for heat dissipation. So any of these diodes, any of these resistors, a lot of heat on here, so I like to leave those up. So that's done. We are going to take these bad boys and just put them off to the side. This resistor and this resistor I'm not going to replace quite yet. Don't let me forget. I'd really like to do the fuse holders because I got my fuse holders from Great Plains. So let's see what other parts I got for this bad boy. I already had the bridges, 600 volt high power, you know, the bridges you need. These should be a little tall, but they'll work. Actually, I'm not going to put that plastic cover back on. Alright, those. These are, now every time I need something, I buy twice what I need just so I'm covered, or more. So I bought 4 times what I need for these. That's going to be my large resistor. That's going to be my 600 ohm 10 watt. And start putting these back in the box. These are my heat sinks I bought for the bridges. They're a little tall, but they'll work. No complaints there. Just find some hardware for them. All right, here is, all right, 6A2s or 6A200s. These are 200 volt rectifiers. Originally it was a 50 volt. These are going to be behemoths compared to what we got in for these 4. Looking at my bench video, I think next time I do bench repairs, I might actually zoom in. And yeah, these are absolutely huge, but there is no complaints here when it comes to being too big. A little bit of extra oomph, a little bit of extra heat dissipation is good. All right, so here is 3AG little fuse 20. All right, so these are, okay, from Great Plains when I was buying them, they always had 2 different versions of these fuse clips. And I'm talking about these little clips that clip on here. Let me take one out and show you. Huh. Yeah, I've seen them done both ways. I kind of like to do them on the top, but you know, it's kind of personal preference right there. Here is the clip, the fuse clip. So this is going to replace these clips here. Hopefully you guys can see that pretty well. There's 2 different values of these. You want to have like more than 10 amps and less than 10 amps. The thing is, when you're buying from Great Plains, the 10 amps and more are like 55 cents, which isn't bad if you think about it. But then you got the less than 10 amp ones, and they were like 20 cents. It's like, well, I could buy a lot of them. You know, I'm just getting to the point where I'm done of having a ton of them around. So I'm just probably, I'm not production here. I'm going to just get to the point where I do, I'm just going to stock the 10 amps and up. I do have a baggie of the smaller ones. They're good on here. I don't need to replace them. But because Great Plains isn't around anymore, their website is very valuable. So what I did is I went and I looked up the part number that he had listed for his for them, and I did a search on it on Mauser. Well, it was a little bit more, but they actually are out of stock of it. But I found a compatible one. So the part number I'm using is manufacturer part number 01220088Z. I want to make sure there's nothing. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that very well, but that's the part I'm going to be using. That is the newer version of these. I don't know if many of you are aware there's an ROHS compatible thing that happened. And even though these are should be the same clip, I'm still keeping them in pairs. So I'm not going to mix up these sets. And the RHS compatible mean everything that had to go over to Europe had to be a certain chemical. And now that I got these out, I'm going to do those right away before I forget. But what that means is a lot of parts were incompatible. I had to come up with new lines, even though they're exactly the same components. They just changed one part of them, and they still react the same. It's just different part numbers because you can't have the same part number both ways. Yeah, I agree, Jeremy. Mauser is great, but can get a little pricey. So one thing to keep in mind. So Mauser can get... oh, shoot. All right, this is going to be more interesting. All right, so my... I don't have a large enough tip on my desoldering iron, so I'm going to have to clean up around it. Might take me a few spots at it. So they can get a little pricey. Make friends with other pinball guys, because then when it's time to order parts, maybe you can kind of combine orders. Like when I was ordering these, I immediately told a mutual friend of ours, Scott, hey, I figured out this part number, and if we would have ordered 100 of them, it would cost me less per. Would have been nice, but yeah, the lead, that's what it was. Thank you, Jeremy, for the specifics. So I sometimes we can, you and get together with some friends. You guys can actually combine orders and maybe end up with more than you intended, but not for that much more money. And I don't know if you guys have seen, the wall in front of me is all these drawer units, and someone's like, wow, what are you doing with all that crap? Well, you don't know the hundreds of dollars sitting here in front of me, and also the value of having the part right away when you need it is just amazing. I'm kind of on a roll removing these, so I'm going to just remove all the bad ones, which would then be 3 down right here. You actually see the traces are larger for the ones I'm removing, which also means it's going to take more heat. Fun. Yeah, I mean, I've gone back and forth on the bridges on the top and the bottom myself. And good evening, Jay Sargent. Thank you for tuning in. And I decided I know underneath is a little cleaner. The metal plate will just... I understand it will burst the heat better because it's a larger metal plate and it's steel. But the other thing is it's underneath everything, whereas on top it's on top. So I understand both arguments, and I'm just going to say it's your preference what you want to do. The other thing is sometimes with the thickness of the bridges that you're using, it may be hard to get the exact right thickness to sit down at the bottom. So as I explained to Jeremy a little earlier, he helped me work through a few of the nuances because I didn't want to I got impatient. I didn't want to take the time to learn what did they change since I streamed last. It's been I haven't actually done that much on YouTube. I started on YouTube, but then I was doing stuff for Twitch. All right, sweet. Those are going to be a little hot. One thing when you're taking parts out like that, now I'm going to take one of these colder ones like these. Because it's just a large metal item and large traces, don't do one side, walk away, have a soda, and come back. I like just to keep going until I got the whole thing out because this is going to hold some heat and preheat and make it easier to get the whole thing out. Same like with an IC. You're taking out a 40 dip or 16 dip IC. You go all the way around, pull that out, and then start working it and go back. Because everything's still a little bit warm, it's going to be easier to get that out. Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that. But, I mean, that's one thing is there's a lot of opinions on how you do it. But I can see how you can say you solder them in when they're in there. I like to do everything on the bench. All right, so those are out. I'm going to throw these in my junk pile now. I always keep a junk pile going just because... then I can always go back. Now is when I inspect what I removed, and got a little bit rough on there. I'm gonna, maybe time to clean out my desoldering iron. There's something on here I don't want to. Now sometimes when you're desoldering, you find you have to throw a little solder on there to get a good connection to kind of clean that out. All right. All right, so hopefully I didn't screw these up. Now, one other thing with these little fuse clips, if you're putting them in, so looks like we have a lot of people that know what they're doing in chat today, but you know, maybe someone watching the video again. There's a front and the back. So there's the back that's closed off and there's a front. Best way I'm going to put them in is I'm going to take a fuse. I'm going to actually snap it in, but I'm actually checking the fuse. This is a 20 ampere. Those are cheap. I got a bunch of those. So I wouldn't use a 3/4 amp because those are kind of a little harder to find. So I'm going to take this pair, put it in there, and I'm actually going to put a fuse in. And that's going to keep everything nice and square for me. And this is where a little bit of painter's tape also comes in handy. One thing I'm just going to do is make sure everything is sitting exactly the way I want it. It's sitting in that fuse holder. There's a little bit of room on the front and back. Just because if you got it too tight and you're going to put that next fuse in, that fuse is maybe made a little differently. So that's going to be good. And I'm just going to wish I used more tape. Another thing you can do is put something on the back side to get a good push on it. Now I got the fuse to hold on. The tape's going to hold it good enough. So I'm going to start it and then I'm going to give her. Now normally, this is a desoldering iron. But the trick is it's also a hot iron. So for putting these back in, I can use it as well. Now I got it started, I'm just going to push on that fuse and the fuse holder. I'm going to do the same for over here. Make sure I get it seated where I want it. Check it. I mean, visuals, I like to make sure it's not looking goofy. You know, I completely understand what you're saying about the Big Daddy and Great Plains. Don't know if you guys know, I took a job in the coin-op industry working for Victory Glass jukebox parts, and it's exactly the same thing that's happening in the jukebox part supplier right now. Everything is evaporating, and we are trying our darndest and putting our best effort to get parts made, and the joke is are we going to be able to get them, or are we going to have to just start making from scratch? So, all right, so I can guarantee you that fuse I'm holding, fuse I use to hold this in place is shot. Board connectors replaced on my Electra. Now yeah, Jeremy used to have an Electra. Played a lot of it. So with this fuse, this is just going to be my soldering fuse. Normally I would have so directly in front of me, I have a ashtray, and I normally just throw broken parts in there, so I would fish one of those out. But this game, I want to give us the best case scenario, so we're going to be putting new fuses in it once we get all done. Let me do this one. I guess the only part I'm not really replacing is this little fuse, little red guy, the surge suppressor. Kind of your last chance at saving the game. Which managers did you got? I'm actually that's the fun part. Is the thing of like when I got into the pinball hobby and getting into this is learning about all the different models and parts and nuances, and now I'm getting to the point where I can identify a lot of parts just by looking at them. We have I'm learning about the tone column Rockolas of 1940 and 41 and the dial-a-tunes, which hopefully I'm trying to get a wall box or some parts for those just to kind of play with and maybe even make a solid state stepper. Who knows? So I'm doing the same thing I did on the other one. Just putting this in here. Which new original manuals, or you got manuals like repops? What era? Because a lot of the times the yeah, original manuals are always nice to have, especially if you have that jukebox. I am going to be doing a lot more, well, because now it's my job, and I'm learning as much as I can. Every jukebox I rebuild, the better. And I don't know if you notice behind me, there's a Wurlitzer 1015. I've been slowly restoring. I'm happy with that. And I need to get that done. The mechanism is going to be quite the trick. Some more tape up there. All right, so fuse holders, check. Hot little bugger. And oh, nice. Got fuse holders. I'll do my soldering connections yet. We still need to look up that resistor, see what that's supposed to be. I'm going to do these CR 5, 6, 7, and 8. These are the high voltage. Those are actually known for failing, and that's what they changed mid-run after Vector apparently. So these need to just come out. Now, one thing is, if you have a desoldering iron, one thing I wasn't doing when I started is, so you go straight down onto the board, and you kind of move it and rotating, keeping it perpendicular to the board. Then you pull it off. The thing I was doing when I first got this is I would just let go of the trigger. When I do that, it's more likely to bind it up. So I like to kind of rock it back. I like to keep it perpendicular, let it get good contact. Rock it back while I'm still holding the trigger, just so that I don't. Ooh, this one's on there good. I might need better pliers. Can't find my good pliers, the ones with the bent ends. But rock it back so you don't get any in there. There we go. Just took a little twist. So the other thing is, when I'm taking this out, I can smell the solder. Kind of has an odd smell to it, or a burnt smell. That's probably a sign that it's time to replace it. I find interesting. Underneath here, there's a square. Huh. So yeah, this was designed. Whoever designed the solder spots on this board designed it for one of those small square rectifiers, like you used to have on takeoff of the earlier System 6, System 7 rectifier boards. The Stern Valleys, the early 80s. Those little ones that we throw out and we put the big ones on. Oh yeah, that's I agree. I had the manual one. The problem with especially the Radio Shack manual one with the bulb on it, after destroying some traces and stuff, it's just like, I hate to say it, but this bad boy pays for itself. I actually ended up getting myself a portable one. If you don't use it a lot, but if you're working on a bench, I would recommend having a bench mounted one, just because the little bit less bulky. There we go. What I ended up doing, I just had to I was just kind of moving it in and out because it was in there pretty tight. So it's a little less bulky with the hand grip. I like the pistol style, but I've seen people with the pen style and really like those. So there we go. Those are off, and these are going in the garbage pile. I am a Heiko fan. You'll find people that are a Pace fan. I actually got a Pace desoldering iron for sale that needs a little bit of repair. Had it listed on KOLV. Pace Sensitemp. It needs to repair the. This is plugged. So the Sensitemp. When it works, especially for fine components, worked great on like Williams WPC MPU boards and stuff. But since I got I had it as a backup, and it started getting flaky. I think there's a bad connection for the heater. So once that started, I'm like, okay, well now I need to put a heater in it. I spent way too much money on the piece. I got 2 bases for it, so I decided it's time to let it go. I got a better backup, and I use it so much. I just have to have a backup. FR301, is that the FR301? Is that the newest Heiko model line that pretty much replaced the 936? Yeah, I use it so much after getting one. I'm like, okay, what do I need to do to get it back up, because it's worth it. I actually did a laptop repair for a guy that paid for it, so I did the repair, replacing the power connector. And this is years ago when power connectors were constantly getting ripped off by dogs before they went with magnetic ones, and this was an old used item at that point. So I did the laptop repair. And I wasn't able to get the solder out properly because I didn't have the iron. Took the money I got from the repair, bought the iron, and well, it broke loose. So I brought it back, said I'll fix it for free. Took it all apart, had to take the board out. It took longer to do it. Once I finally got it out, I was able to break that old, that high silver harder solder out with that other, with this bad boy, and I fixed it. I gave it back to them. They were happy. Okay. So the 470 and the 471, I think one is more ESD control, is the one that came before all of those. So that was the same era as the 808, I believe, maybe a little older. So the 300, okay, 300 replaced the 808, the 301 fixed that issue. So I have a 301. Yeah, I have a 301 that is, if you're going to get one, that's a great tool. I love it. If I do any soldering on a board, I have any issues with something en route, I use that with me, I take it. But I still keep using the 470 and the 802, because this has been with me for, oh man, probably at least 10-15 years so far. Trying to fix everything, and kind of goes along the lines of, how can you have a nice collection? Well, I work my butt off fixing stuff for everybody and anybody, so I could have the money to to pay for tools. All right, so these are huge. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to eyeball them up, and I'm going to put them on one at a time. Now, what I suggested to do is, you want to set these off the board just a little bit. So what I'm doing is I'm just eyeballing it up. I'm going to bend this straight down, make sure it fits. Yep, I have been a Heiko fan for a long time, and I will continue being a Heiko fan. So what I can do is just do a little kink in here to make it stand up a little bit off the board and not shift down when I'm soldering it in. Okay. It's been a while since I did this, so I'm just going to do a little kink in, and what that does is give me a spot to go. Nice. And the one thing is my it looks a little goofy. I know a lot of the Heiko stuff is getting pirated or copied. So like the 936 is my soldering iron I use over here, and I absolutely love that too. And I can't speak for those. I did not try them. So the 936 is a great iron. I remember that's actually the first Heiko thing I had, and I went to a local repair guy who would do all the repair stuff, and he was a god with switching mode power supplies. You could bring him anything switching mode, and he'd be able to figure it out without a schematic. Just a great guy. And I asked him about a soldering iron because I had a Weller, and the Weller went through. Kept going through tips. I'm like, I don't understand how, I just put a tip in, and then 2 months later I got to put a new tip in for hobby work. And he said, yeah, for his shop, he does not use a Weller, and the reason for that, same thing, it goes through tips. Then he said, see that 936 over there? That's a very reasonable, not a digital display or anything on it, very reasonable bench soldering iron. And he comes in every morning and turns it on, and he turns it off when he leaves. That might be a little bit too much height. And it goes through an iron every year and a half, or an element. I'm like, wow, that is amazing. So I ended up going with the 936. That was my first brand new iron I bought. And even though it wasn't the most expensive, it was, at the time, getting into the hobby, it was pricey for me. And still have it to this day, and I hope to have it for many years to come. Alright, let's see how that works. Not the prettiest repair. I'm not super proud to be showing off that kind of work here. I like to keep everything level. Sorry guys. Just trying to kink it to make it so it doesn't drop down if it does get hot. And I like to keep these up above the board because why not? You have the space. I'm going to try a little bit better on the next one. Probably going to be perfect by the time I get the last one done. If we do that. Alright. Trying to. That might do it. Now if I screw one of these up, I got plenty more. That's why you always buy extras. Always, always, always buy extra. Yeah, I've never heard of the Circuit Specialist one. I know there used to be a catalog that was out, that MCM that we all got, and it had Tenma digital, and that was the one we all wanted. Me and my buddy, we would drool over that and be like, oh yeah, that'd be great. And then you start doing reviews, and for the money, same money, I got this Heiko. So unfortunately, I think Heiko got a little bit pricey with their entry-level offerings. So it's kind of harder just to say, get this iron and you'll be happy. Yeah, exactly. That's, don't worry about upgrading tools. I mean, really, I just finished reading the Adam Savage Every Tool's a Hammer book. One of the guys I look up to. And I started reading it a while back, and just things got busy and I never finished it. With all my travel back and forth for work, I ended up getting on the Libby audiobook and was able to finish the audiobook, and it was read by Adam Savage, which was awesome. And now, just note for the beginner, the line does line up with the arrow, the line on the arrow below it. So I'm just lining these up. Like I said, not the greatest job, but visually it'll work. And he actually had a really good theory behind it. He says if you hear about a new tool, you don't have to particularly go out and buy the latest and greatest right away. That's his theory. He says buy the cheap tool that's good for one job. He was talking about an air riveter. He said buy the cheap tool, and then after you use it and decide if it's good for you, if that specific tool may not be the tools, is the tool good or bad? And the question may be more, is the tool what I need for the job, or what will make my life easier? And you'll find that sometimes the answer is yes. And he said to buy the cheap tool, use it till it breaks. Buy the one job tool. Then when you're done with that one job, then you can evaluate, hey, is it worth it? Did this tool really save me? And when that tool breaks, and if that tool takes 3 years to break, well, maybe you don't need the 5 times the price tool. But then, when it does break, you can say, hey, that tool make my life easier. Is it worth it? Then buy the tool you never have to replace. So don't buy middle grade tools. Buy the cheap one, let it break, and then decide if you need the good one. If you buy the cheap one and it never breaks for you, well, keep going. Alright, so far so good. Replacing these big diodes. Reason why, I want to keep them off the board because they get hot. You can see the board on below them is a little bit of brown. This is actually not too cooked. But the board does get a little hot underneath it, so by giving it just a little bit of airflow, doesn't take much, but just a little bit of air off the board, just lets the air, lets everything move better. It keeps it cooler, protects your board. All right. A little warm underneath there. Yeah, I guess I never looked closely enough just to see what was underneath there. All right. That you could actually put a square bridge. I never heard of anyone doing it, but it's possible. We don't have any capacitors on this either. So it's just mostly diodes and connectors. But that's what these bad boy needs. This is the heart of your machine, so why skimp? I mean, if you're uncomfortable doing this and you suspect you have problems, well, you better buy a new module. If you're not uncomfortable doing this, just do it. Order the parts. I think from Mauser, I mean, shipping's expensive. That's why you order enough for two or three games. I think I got enough to do, besides bridges, which I had a bunch. I think I got enough to do four games, which I'll use them eventually. As Jeff said, there's this power board is in so many different games. I'm not going to power this up today because there's one part I need to research. It's that R3. I'm not sure what the value is supposed to be, because what I took off is different than what I bought for it. Now, if what I took off is fine, it ohms out fine, I'll put it back on. Okay, so there's a few different ways one can tackle this kind of repair. One way is to work your way across the board and touch everything. Another way is to do all of one component. Sometimes people, also will just strip the board completely. I mean, you do what you're comfortable with. When you're starting, I would recommend doing all of one component first. That's the method I'm doing tonight. I don't have a rhyme or reason why, but that's what I thought I wanted to start with. That looks good. One thing I forgot to point out. Oh, same here, Bear K. Thanks for stopping in. When I put components on, the first one I screwed up on, I tried to make it so I can read most of the part number on the top side of the board. So without turning around, if you ever had like an older axle capacitors on something, you have to twist them to get to them. You're like, okay, you're going to break, you might as well desolder them at that point anyways. But that's one good tip for when you have to go back and make sure you got the right parts in the right spot. Alright, so those are done. These are done. Resistors not on. These are upgraded. So next thing to do is to do these resistors. Still looking for those. Now I bought a whole baggie of parts. I got some parts for Wurlitzers, generic pinball. I got a Wurlitzer. Here we are. Wurlitzer wireless units from 1946. I'm gonna try to be working on the bench on and off too. Throw out the 1849, rebuild the 54. Well, there you go. Now, if you have an 1849, would you just buy the one from Pinball Life then? Isn't that just a rebuild to the 54? Alright, so I'm going to get to these two big resistors. This is a 25 ohm Oh, I accidentally got a 6.5 watt rather than a 5 watt. No, that's not. That's like a capacitor, a little bit extra heat dissipation, because that's what that is heat dissipation. You can have more than you need. And then the long one. So the values match up. Resistors, that's what those are not directional for those of you newer to electronics. Now when I'm doing these, I like to kind of just pull lightly on the other side once I start feeling it release. And if it's stuck for some reason, I just keep rotating it just so that it doesn't freeze down. So I'm going to do this one. It's still stuck in a little bit. And that's done. Alright, so this one's going to be a little bit more interesting to get out. So that kind of pulled out a little bit and got stuck. So now correct me if please help me Nick here. Now you're saying the dash 18-49, are those the smaller square ones that don't plug in like this, or are they just compatible to this one, just a little bit different design? Okay, you're talking, yeah, you're talking about the smaller square ones replaced. And this is the powers in the head. Well, some of those though, smaller square ones with the 3 rectifiers on the 3 bridges, those were also sometimes in the bottom of the machine too, like on System 7. And if you had a Stern, like my big game, it has it in the bottom. So that's, unless that's a different version. I haven't really sat down and looked over the different versions much lately. So you are probably much more versed than I am on these. I never want to claim to be an expert. I just want to share my knowledge, share what I know, and learn. Hey, so next time, how you doing? Getting ready for MGC? How often do I replace components? Well, in a pinball machine, especially home use, once you get it. Capacitors, I mean, if they're 10 years old, I mean, what we're doing here probably only needs to be done once, unless you have something burn out. Once you replace it, if it's this has been cobbled or how old it is, if it's been if it's going to be routed, then you probably want to inspect them. But a lot of these parts on these boards, these are original things I'm taking off, and this is from mid 80s. So 30 years on resistors or diodes. I'm just doing just because we're down here and the diodes are cheap. And these big ones are known to cause problems and leaks. So those you always want to replace. But if it hasn't been done on a board like this and you want to keep that game, I would do it. If it has been done, and I would inspect it. Now capacitors are a different story. They say once you start using capacitors, especially in monitors, that they're only good for 10 years. So you can test it. That's an argument that can be had across the board. I'm not going to get into that, but I would say if you've never done it or they haven't been done, especially if it's a keeper video game or a pinball, capacitors might be worth it. If they've never been done, do capacitors. Always electrolytic capacitors. These are, here's some old ones. These can style capacitors. This is out of a monitor, and you notice that the replacements are much smaller. Anything like this you want to replace. You want to check if they've been replaced and you don't know when. You want to look at the tops if they're doming up or you see stuff leaking out of the bottom. They can cause a lot of problems if they're this looks like it's a little bit pushed out on the bottom. That could be a problem. But I would say if it's a keeper, a pinball or a video, I would replace the capacitors. Now, in a Bally or Stern from the solid state era, so that we're talking 80s, so like 79 to 98, you on the solenoid rectifier board, and I'm going to be doing that tomorrow, you're going to want to replace the 2 big capacitors on it and do 2 grounding updates. At least I do. Everybody has an opinion, and so this is what I do. So I use these for the 5-volt filter caps. I use those from Mauser, and for the high voltage caps, I use these 400 volters. 400 volts, 150 microfarad. These are caps of this size are not cheap, but they're worth it. And let's see, what are these? These are 25 volts, 15,000 microfarad. And I just, what Jeremy was saying earlier about Mauser is great. If you ordered from there before, you will have your order history. If you're ordering from Mauser, it's your first time, make an account, save your history. You can go back. You can actually build repair kits. So let's say you're doing a ton of these, and you're like, hey, I want to repair tons of these, and I just want to get the components as I need. You can make a project for every part in here, and just click order 1, order 2, and then you'll get the right quantities. Now, they don't bag those kits together as a bag like Great Plains used to, but you'll at least, if you order two kits, you get 4 bridges, and you get 4 of these resistors. So let's keep going. So now back to what I was saying. Unlike this diode, I'm going to make sure I can read the value of this resistor. I'm also going to, once again, like the diode, stand it up off the board a little bit, because it doesn't cost me anything other than the time of putting a little zigzag in this leg. A little zigzag, just to keep it up off the board. Just enough to let some air underneath it. That's all. We don't have to. We're not building a space shuttle here. Other thing, if you want to be start paying attention to detail, like with these, I'm making sure I can read them from the bottom of the board. So if I can read the writing silk screening on the board from the bottom to top, I'm putting my resistors so I can read them from the same spot. So I can see this is a 25 ohm, 6.5 watt. And this one, I'll be able to see it's a 600 ohm, 10 watt. And that's sitting there. That's where I want it to be, off the board. Now these are wire wound, they're not cement. They will perform the same way. Exactly how I need them to. But yeah, I'll be doing some when I'm working my jukebox parts, I will be on here. I will probably be doing some kits. I already did the amp and the 1015 behind me. Hey Mark, long time no see online. I haven't even had much chance to check out Twitch streams lately. Did I say space shuttle? Or someone else say space shuttle? Didn't think I said space shuttle, but if I did, yeah, you're right. So I'm just, these have the big traces on the top and bottom, so I'm just trying to get a soldering on the top. A little dab. Make sure I get a good connection on both sides, because sometimes these are responsible for connecting them. I like to do the bridges last. The reason being is they're the kind of bulkiest, messiest one. Really? See, Mark, I like Dan and everything he's doing there. I don't know if I'm going to come back to TVMGC. I really enjoyed meeting new people and getting exposed, but I think I talked to Jeremy, and the schedule is something I cannot do right now. My job is I may end up in Appleton. Any day of the week, I may be like, oh, my boss said, hey, we need to organize the racking, we need to do this. I may end up working till 10, 11 o'clock at night, so I can't be under schedule. That's my first problem. Second problem is I want to stream whenever I'm just working, or when I feel like it. Like tonight, I knew I had to do this. This would be a perfect stream topic, because it's not like I'm doing advanced troubleshooting or something like that. It's something that I can think about, talk, and kind of show off a little bit of bench repair again, and kind of get back in the groove of the whole equipment. So I at this time, I think I'm going to just be streaming here on YouTube. It also directly benefits our channel. I know working with Dan also indirectly benefited my channel and benefited our channel. But on YouTube here, I haven't had a chance to make too many videos lately. As well with the whole job thing, I spent most of last year in Iowa moving this business, and I'd like to just do whatever I can to contribute directly to the channel. So right now, talking with Jeremy, I think I'm just going to be kind of on the cuff streams like this, and even if I don't get a chance to schedule it, people can pop in and take a look at it later too, and hopefully they can learn some. Hopefully I can still pass on a little bit about what I learned. So now you may say it's time for the bridges. I'm not doing the bridges yet. That's the last thing I'm going to do. I'm not on the last step. So next step would be all these power connectors. The thing is these are likely to crack, and it's really hard to see. Sometimes around the cone you can get a crack, and then it has bad connection, and that can cause a bunch of problems in pinball. Any bad connections. If one of these wires could go to the ground wires here, it could go to the playfield, could go to this one could go to the MPU, either way, or the rectifier board. We can't risk those cracking. So what we want to do is we want to check carefully all the fuse holders. Those normally aren't a problem, but a lot of times these connectors, especially if you got a .156 like Jay Sargent was talking about, those other boards that are always crap, whatever. Yeah, you always have to at least replace the headers on those. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down the whole board. I'm going to touch up these solder joints, and just use a hot iron because they're big wires. I'm just looking to see a little bit of floating. Just add a little bit of fresh solder, kind of make it more elastic. But what I'm doing is I'm looking to see the hole around the whole thing bubble up a little bit. Thanks, Jay Sargent, for tuning in. Appreciate it. Have a good evening. So I'm just gonna be touching every one of these up. Alright, so it's tedious. This is probably one of the more tedious tasks, and but it's got to be done. So I got a question for you guys. Now it's still pending approval from somebody else, but tomorrow I am going to be having a friend over, and I'm going to be teaching him how to work on boards and such, and we're going to be putting together a playfield behind me. If he's up for it, I could stream set exchange, and which also show how I'm teaching somebody else. Now I'm not going to be able to pay attention to chat, or maybe I will, but would that be something you guys be interested in watching if there was not as much interaction? Mark, this is a power rectifier board out of a Bally Vector behind me, but actually it's the serial number on this is EPA 6675. So whatever Bally game that starts with PA would be, maybe someone can Google that. is what this is out of, but this is actually for the vector that I'm going to be bringing to MGC this year. One of 3 games I'm bringing. So when I got it, I bought it from a guy non-booting out of his basement. He originally wanted me to fix it. I just didn't have the time. Then he said, hey, look, Christmas is coming. That's how long I've had it. And I said, look. He said, do you want to just buy it? I said, look, I don't have time to fix it. I'll buy it and I'll fix it before next time. Mark, we'll have you. Yeah, I mean, Mark has his own channel too, Jeremy. So I ended up making a deal with him and brought it home. One thing that almost made me not buy it was that it has dual coin doors on the front. And let me switch that over to that. I think the camera's still lined up on it. I'm just going to switch over to my travel cam. And you'll be able to see the front of it has 2 coin doors. Come back to my Bench Plus. And one was for a bill acceptor. It was experimental, and there's actually some articles on there about them. They were found in vectors and electrodes. I know some of you guys are going to say, why am I using a desoldering iron to solder these back up? Because a lot of these wires go into like the grounding plane, and they're heavy-duty, thick wires, or thick traces, a lot of copper plates. That's why you see this kind of grid pattern on here, to make it easier for solder to stick when they're going through the solder wave machine. But I'm using this because it's also doubles. It's a desoldering iron, but it's also a really hot iron. It's a lot hotter than my other iron. So for areas where I need to do lug soldering on the fly, I don't want to get out my big my Heiko hobby iron. I just use this for these. I'm just using it on the side like a soldering iron. It's okay. And the base and the clean out container was given to me by my wife for one of my birthdays, because she knows what tools I really want. I'm kind of one of those. I got this iron used on eBay, and I didn't get a nice base with it and everything, and I got a really nice base unit, and I've been using it ever since. Oh, nice! Last Action Hero. That's always been that's a good game. That had the crane too that they used in another game, I think, or they said they were used in another game. See, I don't know how 100%. I kind of see a little bit of a halo in this one. So, anyways, I got the Vector home and did some troubleshooting, and alright, it didn't boot. No flashes on the MPU at all. And then I reminded what Scott always says. And Scott is kind of our resident in our friend group, our pinball friend group. Kind of he does a lot of board repairs. So generally, when you get stuck, you think, yeah, Scott. He always has at least, did you check this? And you're like, darn it, I didn't. And checking that helps. But Scott always has the saying, I always give him credit because I'm not taking it from him. I start at the wall. If it's not working, okay, well, I'm not going to start at the MPU and figure out what's wrong and start desoldering stuff. Well, okay, check. There's no 5 volts in the MPU. There's no 5 volts on the solenoid rectifier board. Solenoid regulator board, not the rectifier board. So, sure enough, I'm like, I found a blown fuse on here. I replaced the fuse. Is it that? The 5 volt logic fuse blows right away when I turn it on. I'm like, okay, well. At that point, I know I'm going to replace the bridges and the solenoids on this. I want to solder these connections, not the solenoid, the bridges and the rectifiers. So at that point, I knew I was going to do that, so I didn't do any more troubleshooting. The next step really would be, once this is in, unplug the other one and then see what if the fuse still blows. And actually what I'm going to do when I put this in is I'm going to plug all the plugs in, put all the fuses in, pull all the plugs in the back box and see if the fuse still blows. Now the play field is currently ripped apart. There's nothing on the top. It's cleaned and waxed. And my buddy, I'm showing him how to use everything. And Mark and Jeremy, you'll be able to meet my buddy Wes down there next this MGC. So he'll be there with standing in front of Vector answering questions on it, because I'm making him do as much work as possible. And sorry, Wes, but yep, you've been called out. I mean, we're gonna make him do the soldering on the regulator board. But so what we're gonna do is tomorrow we're gonna put it back together, and I need this in the game, because I don't like putting plastics or posts or anything on until I verify that all the lights I put in are working. So that's one thing I'm going to do right away, but I need this board in place to have the playfield lights, which was working before, but I want to get this work done tonight. So so tomorrow we can focus on that part. Yeah, he's a fun guy. He was actually there last year when we had our booth. He helped us set it up, and he helped kind of threw a Victory Glass shirt on and talked to people, and he said, what do I have to know? And so we told him just enough to be dangerous, and he walked the walk. But he's really excited about being more part of the hobby, so I'm making him do everything possible on this one. And when it's done, we might even dig into a caveman together, which is a Gottlieb, and I'm going to fix it up to sell. But I am not a masochist. I'm not going to bring caveman to MGC and just wait for it to fail, because it's just that era of Gottlieb game that can have problems. All right, so what I'm doing in short, you notice I'm kind of soldering around these. These legs are bent over, a lot of solder on them. And so what I'm doing is I'm soldering around it, cleaning up as much as I can, so I can get so it kind of preheats the pin a little bit. So you don't want to damage the copper tracing. Then I'm getting the end of this over it and just working it up while everything's warm. Then doing another desoldering. So we'll see if this wants to come off. And that's why I like a desoldering tool. Pays for itself. All right, I got one more bridge to take off and we'll put it back on. I'm going to grab myself another beverage. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. You notice my 1015 behind me that I'm working on. Kind of getting more into, well, obviously jukeboxes, but also the 78 RPM jukeboxes, especially 19 like 40s Rockola, Wurlitzers from that era, things like that. I got you'll see me working on a lot of weird things. I have a wireless selection system I'll be putting up and getting going. I want to do that online from 1946, wireless. So stay tuned. We'll be doing so. I've already done a lot of work on it, but I think I fried something, so we got to figure out what's going on. Yeah, I agree that had issues. And then Jeff, I'm also dealing with a monitor, and it boots up and plays right now. But before I do any more, I want to go through the playfield. It's not hard. It's a single street level and with a monitor, so I want to tear the playfield down. It's going to take me and Wes probably one night, because normally I do a tear down, clean everything, put it back together another night. 2 nights to strip clean a playfield like Vector. If you're dealing with like WPC era ramps and stuff, it may be like 3. And we're talking 3, like a 3 to 4 hour night. That's a night. Caveman, that's a single 4 hour night. Get that done. Torn out, put it back together. A friend of mine sold me a whole box about this big of parts off another caveman, so I'm set for parts on that thing. I'll probably have to order something. I'll update all the pop bumper boards on it, but there was battery damage. I pulled the battery right off without any tools, and it does work. Displays don't play right. So first I'm going to get it shopped, get it playing, get all the updates done, and then we'll go from there. Huff Daddy, no bumper car update yet. It's cold outside. I did 2 videos. I think I did 1 video when I was putting it back together. I need to find a motor and the front wheel. Bumper car. Welcome, Huff, by the way. So the bumper car. So the front wheel, the bearings, the Timken bearings are way screwed up. So the rear wheels are on and the clevises are repainted. I'm not making the car like new, because I have other small cars I'm making like new, or someday will. So I went to ride around the yard and I found a 100-foot extension cord. So right now it's on AC, so I can drive around my entire driveway without going down the hill. And Jeremy knows what I'm talking about. That's a pretty big ways. Occasionally you have to lean over, grab the cord, and whip it over the other side. But the front bearings are so shot, it's like someone banging in the back of the head with a 2x4 nonstop when riding it. So I rode around for 15 minutes. It's a little underpowered, and that's probably because the original AC motor is just a little weak. It's a little underpowered, and so that needs to be addressed. But those bearings in the front, I had a headache for the rest of the day. I am looking forward to getting that battery on battery. I need to find a proper motor for it. That's my next step. I need to measure the clutch size. I'm going to take it apart, rebuild the clutch, and then I'll rebuild the drive on the bottom with new bearings and such, and maybe even have a custom wheel made. And we're plugged. That happens occasionally with desoldering irons. So I'll get a new either a custom wheel made or something, but it'll get there. And probably the number one reason desoldering irons gets plugged is poor technique. I could have been not pulling the trigger long enough after I was desoldering, putting a lot of volume of solder through there too. And this older solder is more likely to clump things up, so I will just clean that out quickly. Hey Jason, I've been doing good. How have you been? I haven't seen you. I haven't been making too many of the events at D1 lately. But yeah, stay tuned, Huff Daddy. I will be doing an update eventually. Probably once it gets a little warmer and I'm working in the garage, get some parts. There. Never fails when you're on the last one too. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting find. It was I actually got it from a jukebox guy's house, and it was really something I wanted for a while. I saw it and I couldn't say. Well, Mark, even though I haven't done any updates to it, I'm going to be bringing Ghost in the Shell. Maybe I'll do some code updates. I don't know. Right now, life's kind of taken over, and I think I've come to realize that my ideas with Ghost in the Shell are probably outdated. It's just going to be a game that will be there. It was special in its own time, but I'm going to get it finished someday. So I plan on bringing Ghost in the Shell, and going to be playing Vector. My buddy Wes is going to be bringing a friend along, so I have to bring 3 games. That's why I'm making him work on some. And I'm going to be bringing Van Halen. Which, you remember, I don't know if you know Joe Zenkis. Him and another fellow built Van Halen and asked me to take it on and bring it to fruition. Yeah, trying to avoid winter on this day. So you're not going outside for 2 days. Got it, Jason. We're currently getting snow. I plowed about 5 inches this morning, and I don't know, they're saying we're going to get a foot by morning. On top of that 5 inches. All right, so these bridges. Now this is, originally they're mounted to the bottom like the ones I just removed. I could put them both back on with those spacers. Me, like a few other people, and this is preference. Do what you want. So if you notice this kind of offset hole pattern and the bridge is offset, for it to go on the bottom. What that means is the plus has now AC. These two wires are the AC wires, and it's marked AC and plus on one side. But you can, knowing bridge or being around electronics, if you see AC and plus on one side, the one kitty corner, the other AC is AC. The one kitty corner to plus is negative. So AC and AC doesn't matter which side it's plugged into. It doesn't matter. Now plus and negative have to be on the same side. So if I want to, rather than putting this on the bottom of the board, put it on the top. So I need to turn it so that the plus and the negative line up, but go to the same connections they would be if I'm on the bottom. And what does that mean? That means the plus is going to be off. So I'm going to have to Z bend that leg over. Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, I'll be bringing my own beverage as well. So I will make sure that I'm at least covered, as to make sure that there's got to be plenty of beverage. Well, Mark, at Expo, I helped Dave out and I took one for the team. He was getting a low on alcohol. I said, I'll finish that up for you. Just being a good friend. All right, before I put these on, I'm putting them on the top side. Like I said, that's preference. Some people put them back on the bottom with the spacers. I like them on the top. Reason I can put bigger spacers in, heat sinks. Now I got to put these heat sinks on before I put it in. So I'm going to need a little bolt and a nut. And I'm going to get that for both of these and some heat sinks. So I'm just going to step over here for a minute, maybe even less. Grab my rusty, dusty bolt organizer. This is 632. I'm pretty sure that's going to be the right bolt. Yep. Alright, so that's not going to be long enough. So it's going to need, I don't like to do too big of a bolt if I don't have to. But I'm going to have to do a little bit of a bolt length because that's not going to be enough. Alright. So it looks like I got to be about a 3/4 inch bolt. Go through. Make sure that's the right size. Yeah, I'll be right. All right, so I'm going to get 2 of those out. Then I need 2 nuts. I'm actually going to use these ones with the washers built into them so they don't shake loose, because after I put these on, they're kind of hard to take apart. Oh, nice. Unless they get kicked out like that one guy did one year for openly drinking in front of the camera. Alright, so you just don't bolt these to the bridges. So I got these two. I'm going to put a little bit of thermal glue gel on them. And yeah, I could probably take the thermal gel from the other ones and scrape it off. I think this is getting down there. It doesn't take much. The other thing you got to keep in mind is this is 8206, 3506. So these are a different part number. That's getting down there. I need to get more thermal gel. Is we're using better components, and we're also using better. Try to find one that's open already. So yeah, we're using better components than we were back then, and we're also using higher amperage components. So not just better as in quality, but better as in capability. It doesn't take much. Oh, nice. That's good, because that was always our complaint. It kind of lost the party atmosphere. So yeah, the biggest thing with this thermal paste is it doesn't take much. I want to put a little bit more of that on. I haven't talked to Dan in a while. I actually been meaning to send him an email. We decided that this year Victory Glass is not going to be having a booth there. We have some new stuff to do, but problem is I've been working too hard. I'm really looking forward to a vacation, just hanging out with my buddies rather than working a booth the whole weekend. Hopefully you guys appreciate it or understand why we're not there, but we are going to be there next year probably. So I think the plan right now is to do like an every other year. Well, if Dan says it's a go, as long as we don't get in trouble. Alright, so the hole in these bridges are bigger than the 632, but the hole in the heatsink is a 632, which is our handy dandy yellow. Yellow driver, which you use over the top of playfield swaps. So bend these legs straight. We're actually on the tail end. There's just one thing I need to research, and what the heck R3 is supposed to be. And I'll get the ohm meter out, and we'll have to see what I pulled off the board and see what went in. That's the only reason I'm really wondering what PE is, EPA. Game rather than vector. So I thought vector was VE. So vector should be EVE, not EPA. So I'm trying to wonder. This is a metal case. You can crank these down pretty decently. The good news about that is they're not going to have really good access to that bolt once I put these on. And that hole, if the bolt does touch it, is through. So, okay, once again, plus and negative are the only two that are important. So for plus, I'm going to have to just do a little bit of a bend over here. And now it's adapted. And also with these, we're dealing with a heat issue again. So we want to have a little bit of space. Don't want to have them jammed tight against the board that we're trying to prevent heat from building up on. So I'm probably going to just have to solder one of these and just kind of massage it into place where I want it to go. Probably the hardest part of this entire thing is getting these bridges where you want them. A little bit of space underneath them. Yeah, I need to talk to Dan a little bit. Sure, he's going to be disappointed that Victory Glass is not going to be there, but when we are there, we're going to have a good time. We're going to want to actually have a really cool idea I'd love to do is work with some of the guys bringing arcade games and bring a Seaberg SQS or a STD 160. Not mine because I'm not holding it on my basement. It's hard. It was a very tight fit. But bring one of those, bring a Tron, maybe even bring an E-Dot. And make like a Tron corner. Try to get as many games from the movie as we can around there, like a 4-player football or something kind of cool. And make like set up a tent and make like a Tron homage. That would be cool. All right, one on, one to go. Now plus is on plus. That's the most important thing. All right, so this one to go, and then I got to figure out the R3, and then we're good. A little Z-bend on that bad boy. Yeah, you have to, Mark, when you see Wes, I'll point him out to you. You have to be like, oh, I've heard so much about you. Just kind of freak him out. He'd love that. Kind of explain that MGC is my mecca. I've been going since 2008. I've been bringing games for not quite that long. I never brought a game to the Olympia, thank God. But I did bring games to Sheraton. Either my buddy and I would Oh, Pac-Man. Could be. That would be a similar board era. So if it really is Mr. and Mrs. Pac-Man, that means I should probably follow what the resistor should be as according to Vector. Actually, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to check PinWiki, see what they say for that resistor, just because it's a super easy switch. Alright. Check those. Let's check that out. Positive goes to positive. Negative goes to negative, of course. Good and sturdy. I'm happy with that. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Of course, knowing my luck, he's going to watch the stream and be like, oh, I saw you working the game we're working on. And then he's going to hear all about me talking, setting him up. All right, cool. Everything has been replaced on this board except for R3. And, of course, the fuses. All right. Let's look at R3 a little bit. So what did I pull out? Maybe the one in this bag isn't even 100 kilo. All right. So the one in the bag is not 100 kilo ohm. It's a 32 kilo ohm in a 100 kilo ohm bag. That could be a problem. What came out of there was 100 kilo ohms. So that was not supposed to be in that bag. Well, it's a 33 k ohm, so that goes into a greater than 30k. So I need a 100 kilo ohm resistor. Shoot. I can always throw that other one back in. It's not really that critical. I'm just seeing if I happen to buy one. I know I bought a lot of stuff, and I could have just said, hey, I'll just buy a spare. 194007, that goes in my diodes. That was just for stock. Alright, so let's go to greater than 100 greater than 30k and see what I get. 220. 168. 1 watt, 100k ohms. Says it needs a quarter on it, but I probably don't need to replace it. Half watt. There we go. I can put a half watt in there. That's fine. That'll do it. Half watt, 100k ohm. These are wire rounds, so they're a half watt, but they're tiny as heck. They're great. And this is why when you need a part, you always order more. Alright, and just to be sure, easiest way to check, to make sure. Yep, there we go. Alright, so that's not a mystery. It was just the wrong part in the bag, and that's why you always check. It's so tiny. There we go. And What is that hole right there? Oh, that's a test point. Okay. There we go. Now what I do is I always save all the parts sitting here on the bench or in my container, my waste container, until I test to make sure everything's working. So there we go. Oh, spot of solder there. Alright, everything has been replaced on this board with the exception of the low amperage fuse holders. The sockets have been resoldered, and the VR surge suppressor. This guy takes a snap if the surge makes it this far. Sometimes it saves them, sometimes it doesn't. So this board is good to be installed in the game. Of course, gonna check on my fuses before I put them in and make sure I got the right ones. I might as well do that right now. I know I need a 4 ampere for sure. What I like to do is take a little Scotch-Brite, feel it spinning, and it's probably junk. Alright. I take a little Scotch-Brite, just clean the ends off if there's any tarnishing. Check them. And then check the value. This is a 20 ampere. Alright, now do the same thing. Now, there's a good chance that there's wrong value, so always make sure it matches what's on the board or the manual or both. Actually, check both, because the board may not be up to date. So this is a AGC 20. So the fuses on here are 20, 25, 4, and 3/4. I threw out 120 already, and I have another 20. What does that tell you? That tells you that someone put the wrong fuses in already. Which we'd rather blow a fuse for $1 than... Actually, I forgot to check that one. I'll check it in there. You're supposed to check them outside. I'm pretty sure these are all good fuses, so for the one I threw out. This is 4 amp. So the only place where this one fits says 4 amp, not 3/4 amp. Let me check the other side. Alright, so the only place this fits is here. So I had 4 amp blown when I got it. I had another 20 that was blown, which was probably in the 5 amp spot, and the 3/4 amp probably had a 4 amp. So that's why you always check the fuses. Always check the values in the fuses, because we don't need to deal with that problem. We don't need to cause more damage. Alright. So I will need to get a 5 ampere, get this installed in the game. Fight me a little bit. Start all the screws and then I'll finish them once they're all. Well, let's hope nothing breaks. lot of screws on this thing. For a little board. And it doesn't even have the two screws underneath the bridges anymore, which is interesting. Wiring harness gets in the way a little bit here. So, let me know, guys, do you want me to go get the fuses and do a smoke test? Or we'll be calling it a night. One of the two. Either I'm going to do a smoke test and call it a night, or I'm going to get the fuses live. You have to walk to the other room. We'll grab them though. Plugging everything back in. There we go. All right. I think I'm just going to switch back and call. All right, well, I'm going to walk away. I'm going to go get the two fuses I need then. I'm going to get a 5 amp and a 3/4 amp. I'm going to unplug this solenoid board and we're going to test it. I'm going to verify these are in the right bins. Do a quick test on them before I plug them in. It's always hard to read these ends. Alright, that's the right value. Making sure it's not a slow blow or something. I currently have my bins mixed together. Alright. Alright, now the 5 amper, I'm going to do the same thing. Clean the end. Yep, that's AGC5. Do a quick test. When I'm cleaning the ends off, if I feel the cap spinning, I will throw it out. Okay, so I need to, because I'm pretty sure the problems I'm having are those big diodes I replaced. Those are known to leak and cause 5-volt problems. But just in case, I'm going to unplug some boards in here. I'm just going to completely unplug the rectifier board because that's the next one to come out. That's the supply for that. And I'll leave the sound card plugged in. That should be fine. That actually, the sound card, the Squawk and Talk, has its own power supply on it. So that gets its own feed straight from the, I believe it gets its own feed straight from the transformer. Actually, I'm going to flip this up so I can see something blows right away. That's the hardest part, is I don't know if it's on or off. Okay. Alright, it's currently off. Turn it on and see what we get. Alright, nothing blue. That's good news. We don't have many lights left on the playfield themselves that are working. This is how I received it. I got a total of 6 lights working. I don't know why these back ones aren't working. They should be. Unless I missed a plug somewhere. Yeah, I have a different problem in the back of the board here. Could be a loose connection somewhere. Could be I missed something on the rectifier board. All those plugs are plugged in. So, more troubleshooting. We'll be continue to work on it tomorrow. Haven't done anything other than the top side, so next thing we have to do is get these lights working, all of them working, and then we'll put this together. That's our plan tomorrow. We'll get the top side together. Me and my buddy is going to be over. Then we're going to work on that board in the back. Let me switch back over to the bench. Thank you guys for tuning in. I think that's what we're going to call it for tonight. I made some great progress. Got to rebuild the board. Got to do some streaming for the first time in probably about a year or over a year. Yeah, it's been a while. And appreciate you guys all chiming in, joining in chat. It was a good time. Nice to see some familiar names and some new names. So tune into the next one. Don't know when. Probably going to just pop in at night occasionally. I'll give you guys a little bit of a notice. Hopefully not double click it this time. And see you guys next time. Thank you very much. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to like. Look for us on Facebook if you want to interact some more and see what we're up to.